When you think about endangered Democratic governors, a few people come to mind. The governor of Kansas, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Michigan. But someone whom you might not think of at first is Michelle Lujan Grisham, the governor of New Mexico. Recent polling shows that she is down 2 points to the generic Republican, and even though she is leading all the Republican challengers when mentioned by name, it definitely is not a good sign for her. So Mark Ronchetti was the Senate candidate in 2020, and he famously outperformed Trump by more than 4 points, which was about the same as Cory Gardner in Colorado, I think a bit more. He is only 1 point down to Grisham, while the other candidates, at least those worth mentioning, Ms. Dow and Mr. Zanetti, Gregory Zanetti, are down by a bit more. But then you have the same poll. When informed about experience, Mark Ronchetti is immediately in the minus. The thing is, he has been a reporter and a newsman, I think he has been a meteorologist, and people, when informed about his experience, do not see him as being as fit to govern. The thing is, Gregory Zanetti is a chair of the GOP in Bernalillo County, I believe, and he has been a financial advisor and a military officer, quite high ranking, and he is actually polling 3 points ahead of Lujan Grisham when his experience is mentioned. And Ronchetti, who was only 1 point down in the latest last poll, is all the way down to -5 compared to the incumbent Democrat. Now, Dow, which is much more controversial, is probably not even worth mentioning, so certainly not looking too good for her. And what I find surprising is that so many Republicans absolutely had very high expectations to Ronchetti, but when it comes down to it, this very unknown guy might actually have a better chance, which reminds me of another state, Nevada. Now, it reminds me of Nevada because there you have, of course, Dean Heller, the former senator who is running, and also Joe Lombardo, who is the sheriff from, I believe, Clark County, is endorsed by Mark Hutchinson, the former lieutenant governor of the state, and he is polling better against Sisolak than Heller. In each of these polls, including the Republican internals and the Democratic polls, which of course are showing Sisolak much better, Joe Lombardo is outperforming Heller, and many might have already seen Heller for a while as the expected Republican nominee, but he's also being outperformed in polls by Lombardo, which begs the question, is he going to be the nominee? And the answer seems to be more and more probably not. In the state of New Mexico, where you had Mark Ronchetti, who sort of surprised everyone by outperforming Trump a lot in 2020, he is, well, here performing best among the Republicans, but when you dive into it, here we have the signal poll which has been used. He starts off well, but then fades hard when voters are reminded about his experience, because he doesn't have a lot. Zanetti, on the other hand, leadership experience from different sectors, both economics, the finance, of course the army, and the GOP. That puts him in a very favorable spot. So what are people actually going to take into account when they choose the GOP nominee in the primaries? That is the question. Now, certainly, whoever wins out of these two, Ronchetti or Zanetti, both of them would be very favored. Dow would probably doom the GOP in the state, but otherwise, the flip would be very likely considering the Biden administration is crashing now, and the economy is going to the gutters, and the state of New Mexico is especially hard hit because of the oil sector. And of course, his approval is also plummeting among Latino voters. Now, what this means is that Republicans in New Mexico and Nevada will have a choice between going for the most known candidates or going for someone who is less known, but if they get to know them, they might have a bigger chance to actually take down the incumbent, and that's the big question in these states. They are going to face an incumbent. The incumbent will have several factors going against them, and even though I think that both major candidates in both Nevada and New Mexico has a good chance at winning, the GOP voters in those states have some big decisions they need to take in the future going through these states. But on another note, I have noticed that Kevin Kiley, who was the candidate for governor, or one of many candidates for governor, in the 2021 recall effort against Gavin Newsom, he had other things in mind. He was playing the long game. Here you have, of course, the map, and the most notable new district, I think, is the 5th here. They have pretty much allowed this area to be split in two because population have not declined that much in this area. I believe it's the Los Angeles area where one seat is disappearing, and this has allowed Tom McClintock, the incumbent, to run in the 5th district, while Kevin Kiley, who ran for governor, is now going to run in the 3rd. It is only R+8, but if he won the primary, he is definitely going to be the heavy favorite to be elected in California. He also has a lot of endorsements, but I am sort of baffled by how few incumbent congressmen who has endorsed him there. It's mostly politicians from smaller offices in smaller areas, a few mayors and a lot of council members, and 2 former congressmen, both Republicans, of course. But I'm positive to his campaign. I mean, we need more young Republicans in Congress. I mean, you have Madison Cawthorn and a few others, but after what I've seen from Kiley, I mean, the interviews that he has done, I think he is pretty based, and he is a good fit for this California district. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Please like, please subscribe, I would really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.